Hi, you guys. So now we're gonna read the people, okay? And I'm on page 122. When the people heard the news, they started crying. The ones living side the road followed the wagon to the house. When the others came in from the field and heard what had happened, they knelt down right there and cried. They didn't want to go near him when he was living, but when they heard he was dead, they cried like children. They ran up to the wagon when it stopped at the gate. They wanted to touch his body. They wanted to help take it inside. The road was full, people coming from everywhere. They wanted to touch his body. When they couldn't touch his body, they took lumber from the wagon. They wanted a piece of lumber with his blood on it. I knowed he was dead before Frank Nelson's boy came there and told me. I was laying down on my bed when I heard the sweeping noise passing through my house. Now what? I said. I sat up and looked, and it wasn't sweeping at all. It was a light on the floor, like a flashlight, but not shaking like a flashlight would shake. Moving smooth, going from the front to the back. They done killed him, I said, and I got on Pigeon and started for the house. I met Nelson's boy coming to tell me, but he could see I already know, and he turned around and ran back alongside the horse. When I got there, they had already took his body inside and had laid it on the bed. Vivian was sitting in the chair, just looking at the body. People all around her were crying, but she wasn't hearing a thing, just looking at the body. I put my arms around her shoulders, and I could feel her trembling. It was hot as it could be, but she was trembling like she had a chill. I tried to say something to her. She didn't hear me. I doubt if she even knowed I was there, just looking at the body. I told the people to get out. Making all that noise wasn't doing a bit of good. Get out. I kept a couple women in there to help me with Ned and Vivian, but I wanted the rest of them out. After we put Vivian to bed round the other side, I came back in and told the people, let me be by myself with Ned a while. They didn't want leave me alone, but I told them I was all right, and they went out. I sat downside Ned and held him close and started talking to him like he was still alive. I can't recall what I said to him, just little talk. I can't recall when I fell on him, but I remember people pulling me off the bed and my clothes soaking wet with his blood. It took me to the children's room and made me lay down. Somebody stayed in the room with me, but I can't recall who it was. The sheriff came and examined the body and asked Bam and Elsie some questions. They told him it was Albert Claveau, like they needed to tell him anything. Like he didn't already know it was Albert Claveau. Like everybody around here didn't already know it was Albert Claveau. But he told them what he wanted. What he wanted them to come to Bayonne the next day and to make a full statement. But what he could see there now, everybody was too excited to make sense. The next day, Bam and Elsie went to his office. The first thing he asked them, even before they had a chance to say good morning, if they had been to the wake last night. They said yes. He asked them if they had anything to drink there, coffee, maybe a little wine. They said yes, little homemade wine, blackberry. He said, uh-huh. Now, tell me what happened. They told him the only thing they could tell him was that Mr. Claveau shot Professor Douglas when Professor Douglas wouldn't get on his knees and crawl. He asked them if they were sure it was Mr. Claveau. They said yes, they were sure. He asked them if it was a cane field or a cornfield. They had already told him it was a cane field, so they said cane again. He told them with cane so high that time of year, it was July, how could they see a man? They said Mr. Claveau come out of the cane on the headland. He said he thought they told him Mr. Claveau shot Ned from the cane field. He said just like they was changing their story from cane field to headland. Maybe they would change the story from headland to cornfield, and maybe they would change the story from cornfield to pecan tree. He said if memory served him right, there was a pecan tree close to where Ned was shot. He said, was he right or wrong? They said right. He said, you sure the person didn't shoot from around the pecan tree? They said they were sure he didn't. He shot from the headland of the cane field. He asked them if they had anything to drink the night they stayed in Bayonne. They said they didn't. He asked them how come. They said they was too young, and Professor Douglas would have frowned on that. He said that they meant they was too young. Oh, he said what they meant, they was too young. He said, didn't they just tell him they had drunk exactly one night later at the wake? How, he said, do one night age faster? Or is it the sight of seeing a dead man that put the gray in their head? Bam and Elsie told him they had a drink because someone older had the bottle. When one of the older men said, "Here, drink, rejoice when somebody leave this wicked world. Do not weep." He said, "Rejoice, huh? Do not weep, huh? And maybe y'all did some rejoicing in Bayonne the night before. And maybe y'all was still rejoicing when y'all was coming home yesterday. And with all that rejoicing going on, maybe y'all mistook one man for another." He said he had heard that had often happened with start rejoicing. Half the time, they didn't know what they see. And he said, how did he know the two of them hadn't gone together and killed the professor? He said from what he'd been hearing round there, that professor was getting on a lot of people's nerve trying to make them vote and go to school. He said, did he know some of these people hadn't paid them to shoot the drunk professor to make him leave them alone? He said, just to show you it couldn't have been Mr. Claveau, he had talked to Mr. Claveau the night before. Mr. Claveau had told him, with his own mouth, mind you, that he had spent all day yesterday and all night before gigging frogs on Gros Tepeo. He said to prove it, old man Claveau had showed him the mosquito bites. His poor old body was just full of welts. He told them he was sure they didn't want to call a nice old man like old man Claveau a liar now, did they? They said they could just tell him what they saw. He said he didn't ask them that. He said he didn't ask them that. He said he asked them if they wanted to call a God-fearing man like Mr. Albert Claveau a liar. They said no. He told them to go on back home, and he didn't want to hear the kind of talk out of them no more. Vivian stayed here till we finished building the school. Then she went back to Kansas. She wanted to stay here and do Ned's work, but we was scared she'd get herself killed, just like Ned was killed. We made her go, and we hired a teacher in the name of Jones. Professor Jones didn't look nothing like Ned. A little light-skinned man about half Ned's size. Didn't teach what Ned wanted to teach either. Taught just what them in Bayonne told him to teach. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. And we had to take that or get nothing. He stayed there till the high water destroyed the school in 27. Well, I'm not sure how much there is for us to talk about in this chapter. So it's a recalling of what Bam and Elsie witnessed. The sheriff kind of reminds me of Sheriff Strider, right? The sheriff just doesn't believe these two black boys and try to twist what they said. And it makes me think in Emmett Till, how Sheriff Strider wanted to bury the body right away, to hide, right? To hide what they had done, because he knew about it. And there is speculation, as we think back on the book, that he was the other person who was there when they were trying to kill Emmett Till. And so I feel like this sheriff is similar to Strider, and that maybe if the truth doesn't jive, that I don't know. Tell me what you think, okay? Write in your journal.